Okay, everyone, I'm going to create the examples 1 and 2 that we talked about in last week's lecture. So I've started up Technomatics. I'm going to create a new model in 2D. Okay, so let's expand this. And I'm just going to start by pulling in, let's start with the left side here, the source. So the source, we're going to make this produce a part for us every 2 minutes. Okay, and then to the right of that, we're going to pull in a station. So then we're going to call this station M1. Whoops. M1. And it's going to take 4 seconds, like so. And then the key thing for this is the failures. We're going to create a new type of failure. So availability will be 50%, excuse me, with a mean time between failures of 3 hours. So 3. Okay. And then we click OK there. Okay, so we should have this. Click OK. And then we're going to make 3 copies of this. So Control C, Control V. We're going to call this one, just rename this one, sorry, we're just going to rename it. So rename M2. Paste again. Rename M3. And one more paste. And this will be M4. Like so. Okay. Let's see if we make this a bit bigger. So I'm just trying to center it around the source here. Okay. Now, the next thing is a buffer. Right, like so. And the buffer is going to have a capacity of 100. Okay. Then we want a conveyor, like so. And if we double click on this one, 30 meters, width of 1, and then a speed here of 0.00333. Okay, and if we apply that, then we get a time of 2 hours and 30 minutes roughly. Okay, and then the last thing is our drain. Okay, which we drag in there. Now, then we get connecting here, so we're going to come here. Let's connect here to here, and then add M1. Then we're going to connect here. And then M2 here, M3, and then finally, I should be clicking here, and then here, and M4. Okay, yeah, I can tidy this up here if I think I can get rid of this one. here, click here, 3, and there. Okay, so there's those 3. Let's then connect each of the outputs of the station to the buffer. One, whoops. Like so. And let's see if I can edit this. Yeah, so I can edit the connector after it's been wired. Okay, let's now connect the buffer to the conveyor, and then the other end of the conveyor down to the drain. Okay, so now we've got all of these connected, and so what we're going to do is we're going to add a couple more things. One is, so we're finished with the material flow. Now we're going to the information flow, and one thing we're going to add is a data table. So let's just pull this out here, and the other one is a method. Okay, so let's look at the data table first. Okay, so the data table here, let's first of all rename it. We're going to call this one analysis, like so. And then if we double click it, you'll notice when we double click, we're sort of brought into this different set of tools now because we're working with the table. So here what we're going to do is check off the column index and the row index. Okay, so here we're going to format the first column, and that will be of type object. Okay, and then here in the string, for the name of this column, we'll call it station. And then what we can do in order to not maximize this, but let's go to window and let's cascade the windows. So if we were to, oh, let's do this, sorry. So that I can see here, let's go here. Can I do this? Yeah, okay, perfect. And then this one, and then this one, and then this one. Okay, so now I've created this first column. Here in this column, we're going to make it real. And okay, so then here, so these are the various times here. We're going to get statistics about the various types of time that each of these stations is going to be in the simulation. Okay, so during the 14 days that we set this up to run, we're going to get amount of percentage of time that the station is actually working, waiting, and we're going to make this format. These are all going to be real. Okay. Make this one real, and blocked. That's the name of this one. Real. Where's my real? There it is. and this one is failed. And then the next one is, again, these are all real. So, real. This is paused. Okay, and that's what we've got. We've got these 5 columns, okay? Whoops. Cascade the windows and then close that one. Okay, so that's our analysis table. Then in the method, I'm going to cheat slightly here in that I'm going to cut and paste it. Okay, so I come in here and I'll paste this one in. Okay, so a couple of things. So no semicolons at the end of these. We have an integer I and obj is the object. Just make sure you get the right spelling here. The idea here is this analysis here. That name has to match the name of the table, which we called analysis. Okay. And then again, we're writing, so the name gets written in the first column. We've got working, waiting, blocked, failed, and paused. Okay, so those correspond to the names of the columns here. Okay, so we have working here, and then waiting, blocked or blocking, failed, and paused. Okay, so those are the statistics that are there. Then at the last, after all of this is done, then we're going to write this analysis again. So analysis here, that has to correspond to the name of this table. And we're going to write an Excel file. We put a path. So this is the path on my computer. You should specify a different path on your computer, and then a different name, okay, and then with the XLS extension. Okay, we're going to save that. We're going to say yes to saving it. And then this method, we want to name it, so we're going to rename. We're going to call this one end sim. Okay, and when we do that, notice that Technomatics updates this to change the name, so it's got this like little red badge on the bottom of the icon. That's because it's a protected Technomatics method name. Okay. Okay, so that's really analysis 1. The last thing we need to do, a couple of things. So first of all, if this is you haven't run this before, we have to go here to model settings. So to write, remember in this nsim here, we're going to be writing a file to the computer. So in this model here, we have to uncheck the prohibit on the computer access. So make sure that's unchecked. Okay, and then make sure it's a valid path here. Okay, so then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to come over to the event controller. Now, the idea is that the nsim is run at the end of the simulation. So here we have to define the end of the simulation here. So let's first of all maybe create the right date. So today is the 19th. Let's make it the 17th actually. That was Friday's lab. And let's do 400, let's say. And then we're going to get this to run for 14 days, no hours, oops, no minutes, and no seconds, okay? So because we've defined now the end of the simulation, we're going to set this thing to run. It's going to run for 14 days. It will say, okay, that's the end of the simulation, and then it will call this method and write the analysis values into the right spot. The other thing we're going to do here is click off or check off the show summary report. Okay, so let's just, if this is the first time we're running, let's go at a slow speed just to see here. Make sure that things are connected. Okay, so we're seeing the source producing these items. Okay, and they're getting randomly put on one of the machines. Okay, so 4. Okay, great. Okay, so it looks like it's running properly, so let's speed it up to the maximum speed. Okay, and so we're going here, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Uh-oh. Oh, I know what happened. Hold on. Let's do this again. Reset. Here, we need to apply. So we apply this end time. Okay, let's try that again. So again. Okay, so there we go. Okay, and this is the table here. Okay, so we've got a throughput of about roughly around 8,000 units for a 14-day period. Okay, so that's what you should expect. And then if we look in the analysis here, we're seeing that it's populated. Okay, so it's working about 1% of the time. I think on Friday or Thursday, I was seeing 2% of the time for one of these stations. Okay, all right, so let's save that. Oh, and we can check, and let's call this example 1, week 11 demo. Okay, now, so that's really example 1. So then for example 2, we're doing a little bit more sophisticated analysis here. So we're adding a few other elements. Okay, so let's we'll move this one to here, give us a bit more room. And we're going to add something called a generator and a method. Well, let's go back to the information flow. Let's add our method here. And we're going to do a generator. So the purpose of the generator is periodically, as the analysis is progressing, this generator will stop the analysis for a second and call we're going to use it to call this method. Okay, so in the generator, the settings for that are, let's double click here. We're going to start at 1 hour. Whoops. Okay, and then for each hour after that, okay, this generator will stop the simulation and call the method listed here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to rename this one. This is going to be called new underscore stock. Okay? So this method, this name here has to correspond to this method. Okay, so we're gonna, let's get that set up right away. Let's rename this method to new underscore stock. Okay, and here again, I'm going to cheat a little bit and cut and paste, or copy and paste this new stock method into the method. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're calculating a running average of the number of material units that are somewhere in this process. Okay, so we're taking an average of that, a running average. Okay, so let's save that. Okay, so these two are together. The next thing we're going to do is a time sequence here. And we're just going to call it, so it's called time sequence. Here we're gonna, this is point in time, and here the format of this column will be an integer and value here. Okay, so again, the time sequence what we do here is we go into the record, and we're going to do current dot num mu. Okay, and we're going to put ourselves in sample and for 1 every hour. Okay, so what this sequence will do is it will record the time point and then the value, this current num mu that we've asked for. Okay, so this current, the number of units is then here in new stock is also going to be used to calculate the average. Now we can see right printed on our model here the value of that variable. If we come over here and we come in here, and any of the variables, so we're going to do average underscore stock. Okay, and what that's going to do is it's going to tell us the current value. So so if I click OK here, as this average stock variable is updated in this method, then this display will get updated at the end. Okay, now the average stock for the entire time period, we can get that by averaging everything in this time sequence. So if we come over here to our nsim, and let's call this, let's first of all change this file that we're going to write to example2, and then we can write a comment here. Actually, let me just put this whole thing in. So I'll copy paste this in like so. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're calculating now the average stock 1, which is really the average stock, average of all the averages, or sorry, average of all the averages. Okay, so we're taking a mean value from this column in the time sequence. So again, time sequence, this variable here, has to correspond to the name of our time sequence. Okay, and then all this does is just take the mean value over the entire column. So we're starting at row 1 and going right to the end of the column. Okay, so we're going to that's the updated end sim here. Now, the other question that we're going to kind of look at, so these are basically telling us how much throughput we're getting. So remember, from example 1, we're getting about 7,000 or 8,000 units getting through over the 14-day period. The other question is these failures. So remember, these stations are failing 50% of the time. And so we want to know, one question we want to find out is if how much of the time are all 4 stations in a failed state. Okay, so what we're going to do, let's create, again, we're going to sample this. So let's go ahead and we're going to create a method to figure out how much has failed, how many have failed. Let's also do a generator that generator here will periodically call this method. Let's get a data table in there to record, to place the data in. And then we can even do a chart. So let's do a chart here. That is in, I think, user interface, if I remember correctly. Chart, here we go. So let's add that. Okay, let's start with the table. Let's first of all rename it. We're going to call this failure underscore machine zip. Okay, failure machines. Let's take a look at let's adjust our format here. So again, when we start editing a table, we should take us, let's try that again, failure machines. It should take us into this list. Okay, here we go. So I guess if it doesn't, somehow it didn't this time, let's click on the column and row indexes, actually just the column index this time. So here, let's format this first one. We're gonna format this as time. So there's a special format for the time. So this is recording the time of the simulation. Okay. Then here, these are going to be integers. So this will be M1 underscore failure. And I'm going to copy this. Okay, so so if it's 1, then the M1 machine or station is in a failed condition. If it's 0, then it's working. Okay, so here, so at this time, we're going to figure out if M1 has failed. Here, we're going to go format integer. Where's integer? There it is. And here, I'm going to paste in that text that I had, but I'm going to change this so that I make it M2 failure. Here, format again into the integer, paste in the name here, and come back and make this now M3. And one last time, format, make this an integer, and then paste in the string, come over here, and make this M4 failure. Okay, so I've got time, M1 failure, 2 failure, 3 failure, 4 failure. Okay, so that's the name of our table. Then the method here, let's make this a little bit larger so we see the whole thing. Again, I'm going to copy paste this. Okay, so here I paste in, and again I'm this I here is going to be the row of our failure underscore machines table. Okay, so it's looking at failure underscore machines. So again, this name here has to correspond to the name of the table. And then we're going to call this this event controller. We're going to, so this is, you know, we're going to get the sim time. So in the first column of our failure machines at the ith row, we're going to get the, we're going to timestamp it. So we're going to put the simulation time here. Okay, the total number of machine failures, we're going to initialize that to 0, and then we check. So if M1 is failed, so then if that's true, then we enter a 1 in the M1 underscore failure column. So again, in this table here, remember that I have these columns labeled at the top. So this column, I'm referring to the name of the column by this column index. Okay, so M1 and the ith column row, sorry, and then if it's failed, then I update my total by incrementing the number of failed machines by 1. If it's not failed, then we go to this else thing here, and then we enter a 0 in the M1 failure column. Okay, and then we do that for each of the machines, the stations. Okay, and then the last thing we do, once we've checked on each of the stations, then our total then here, we're going to print that into the total failure. I forgot to do that. So here I've noticed I have total underscore failure, so I can actually copy this one, come over here, let's go here. I'm going to format this to an integer, and then here I'm going to paste in the name. Okay, so now I've got the 4 failures and then total failure, total number of failures. Okay, so there's my method, and the other thing I'm going to need to do, okay, so let's go here. So the method, I'm going to rename this to record underscore failures. Okay, now I need that because the generator, I'm going to set my generator again to start at 0, but then each hour make sure it's a semicolon. There we go. So hour, minute, second. Yep, there we go. So each hour, and then the controls, remember, the thing that I want to call is record underscore failures. Okay, so I click there. Okay, and then the only other thing to do here is to set up the chart. So we're going to get a nice chart of the data at the end here. So the data source here will be a data table, and then the table we can actually go in here, and we want the failure underscore machines table. So we're going to click there, failure machines. We're going to take the entire table, and the data is in the columns, right? Each of the columns has the data that we want to plot here, and we're going to be in mode plot. Let's see here in the display, We're going to do an XY graph. We're going to do sticks. And then 3D effects, 3D stick. And I don't think any of these other things we need to send or set or anything like that. Okay, so let's click OK for now. At the end, we'll go ahead and generate this chart. Okay, now the same settings as before. We're going to run it for 14 days, so no need to change anything there. But one last thing we do need is, if we run this multiple times, we're going to need to reset here. So we're going to create another method here. Let's double click this one. And I'm going to cut and paste here, or copy and paste. Control V. Okay, so what we're doing here is, for the failure machines, this table, we're going to delete its contents. For the analysis, we're going to delete the contents. And then for this time sequence, where we're calculating the number of units in the process, we're going to delete that, the contents of that table. Okay, so we're going to click OK to that. We're going to save that. But the other thing we're going to do is rename it, and we're going to name this one reset. Okay, and again, when we do that, then we get this red badge, because it's kind of integrated into Technomatics. So again, when I press reset here, then all of these tables and the sequence here, they're going to be deleted and get ready to go. Okay, I haven't really changed anything, but just to be sure, I'll set it to a slower speed, and we can just watch it. Okay, so that looks fine, it's still working. Okay, let's crank it up. Okay, so now it's summing all of the throughput here. And we should expect a similar throughput, so it's just under 8,000. And I'm getting this error here. Unknown identifier, average stock, sorry. Let's go here. And let me put this variable here. And I'm going to call this average underscore stock 1. And that's going to be an integer. Oh, average, sorry. So I needed the underscore average underscore stock 1. Oh, active, sorry. That's the problem. Yes, sorry. So we have to click active here. Yes, I remember someone having this problem. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, so this one's going to stay pretty constant, but again, it's right there. And then when this actually runs, we should see, there we go, perfect, 8,000. Okay. Yes. Okay, and then the chart, let's do the chart. So data table, oh, and to actually show the chart, we just click on show the chart, and that appears off screen here. Let me pull it here, and then maybe make it a little wider. Okay, so we can see, oh, where's my legend? Okay, well, the legend here, this brown set of lines, that's the total. I wonder if I need to turn that on. Let's go here, labels, legend on. Let's turn that to the right side. Okay, apply and then show. There we go. Okay, so it's this brown one. That's the total number of failures. So you can see a few times it's reached 4. So all of the machines are in failure. So our throughput at this instant would be 0. Okay. Okay, so that's how to set up those two. Thanks for listening.